Hey guys, how are you doing? It's attorney Deani Winterfunde, and I want to talk a little bit about the green card, the adjustment of status interview. A lot of times, people spend a tremendous amount of energy putting together their green card application or their adjustment of status packet. So they put together a large packet and they spend very little time in preparing for the actual interview. It's all good and well that you have submitted the right documents. You've included everything on the checklist. What I want you to start thinking about once you've submitted that application is to start thinking about the interview. Remember, at the interview, one of two things can happen. They can separate you, where they separate you from your spouse, and they do what we call a Stokes interview. That's option one. Or in option two, what I have seen at my interviews is they decide to interview the both of you together. With proper preparation, there is no reason to fear the green card interview. Um, for one, the questions they're going to ask you is going to be about your life. It is going to be about, where do you live? What's your spouse's name? What's your spouse's date of birth? What did you do for your last birthday party? So it's questions about your life. So it's super important that after you have submitted the interview, you continue to document your relationship, whether it's through continued bank statements, whether it's through leases, whether it's through photographs, that kind of thing. When you're going to the interview, you're going to receive, I have one here, a copy of, you're going to receive what we call an interview notice. And the interview notice is going to look something like this. And of course, I'm bending it over clients to put it my client. So the interview notice will look something like this. I don't know if you can see it, the lighting is pretty bad, but you'll get your interview notice. There you go. And it will have a list of things that the officer wants to see at your interview. For example, it's going to tell you to bring certified documents like your birth certificate, the original copy, your marriage certificate, the original copy, the travel documents you use to enter the United States, meaning your passport, your I-94. All of those are documents that you should have in your immigration toolkit, your immigration file. They're going to ask you to bring that. The officer is going to also ask you to bring in additional evidence to show that your marriage is still going on. Like I'm still in a bona fide marriage. So by that, you can show a lease. Maybe you and your spouse have purchased a home. Maybe you and your spouse have gone on a vacation. Maybe you have a gym membership together. You've taken out a credit card together. So the list of what you can bring in to show that your marriage is bona fide is exhaustive. You could go on and on and on. The important thing is that you want to impress upon the officer that yes, you got married. And yes, even though you submitted the application back in January of 2020, you have continued to live as husband and wife. If you are married, and this is a question I get a lot, if you're married for less than 2 years, you're only going to get a conditional green card. So that green card is only good for 2 years. I hear a lot of people talk about it as the 2-year green card. If you are married for longer, then certainly the officer will grant you a permanent green card. Even if you're granted a permanent green card, you can still, and you you stay with your spouse, then you're eligible to apply for naturalization within 3 years. Same goes if you're granted a conditional as well. I think a lot of people might confuse the two, but the same goes. You're able to apply for naturalization 3 years after you're given your original green card, whether it's temporary or permanent. So that's kind of what the interview looks like. At the end of the interview, the officer will make one of three decisions. They'll they will either grant the application, meaning approve the application. They might have some questions where they ask you for a request for evidence. So there's something in your application file that they need to look at that they're not satisfied with. And they just said, you know what? I need a little bit more time to review this. I always encourage individuals to go to uscis.gov, create an online account, because then you can see if the officer approves your file after. The officer can also say, they need some time, they give you a request for evidence, or they approve it. So one of three things that can happen. Don't be afraid of the green card interview. Do not be afraid of the green card interview. With preparation, it doesn't matter if you're separated or you're together in the during the interview, because if you're prepared, you and your spouse will find this to not be a harrowing or a dreaded experience. Show up on time. Most field offices, excuse me, will only allow you into the field office 15 minutes prior to your interview. So remember to show up on time, dress like it's an interview, have your documents separated and organized. That way, if the officer asks you for something, if you're representing yourself, if they ask you for the birth certificate, you can easily grab it because you're organized. I always say separate your documents into two piles. One pile, your originals. The second pile, you have your additional evidence of bona fide marriage in your second pile. And so that pile you're giving to the officer, all of it, because he's going to keep it. The first pile is, they'll ask you for different things from those documents. So that's what I have for the green card interview, and thank you for tuning into the Immigration Law Academy. Remember, my name is attorney Diani Winter Funde, and if you don't want to go on this journey alone, you can always reach out to me at winterimmigration.com. Thanks for watching.